Charlie, congratulations, and joy and good health to you, my friend. You certainly have earned it.
And I'm the director of undergraduate admission at Boston College, and the successor to Charlie Nolan at Boston College, so I blame him for what the course that my life has taken over these past 25 years. It is a great honor and pleasure for me to be here this afternoon in honor of a man who has done so much for Olin College, all the institutions that he's worked at, but specifically the profession of college admission. And as I reflect, I can't begin to cover all the territory that Jackie did so well, so I'm going to reflect more on the human being that I've known through Charlie Nolan, the great person that he has been in my life. And there's really two qualities about him that are sort of lingering, that are enduring for me. The first is, to put it sort of in a more verbose kind of fashion, Charlie's a guy who always takes an interest in people. He always took an interest. He took an interest in me when he met me up at St. John's Prep in Danvers, when I was a high school English teacher, and thinking about transitioning out of teaching and into something else in the academic field, and he gave me his card and said, "Come down and talk to me sometime." And I did. And a couple of years later, I was working in the BC admission office, working for Charlie. But he took an interest in me, and it sort of changed the course of my life. I was just talking to a colleague of mine back at the office who was a graduate intern at Babson with him. And I guess there's a tradition at Babson that the faculty and staff cook pancake breakfasts at final exam time. And she was a BC student, she had been a BC student, and Charlie and she were cleaning up after the pancake breakfast. He was beside her cleaning off the table. And he just asked her who she was, what year she graduated from BC, and struck up a conversation and took an interest in what she was doing. That's one of his qualities, that he's in many ways more interested in you and your story than he is, I think, in himself. The other quality is more, I think, from a management perspective. What I learned in the 6 years that I worked overlapping with Charlie is that, as Jackie said, he's driven, he's competitive, he's hardworking, he focuses everybody. We're all working toward a common goal, but Charlie fundamentally understood that all of that means nothing if you don't have the right people and you don't have them on board. And he created an office chemistry and office morale that made people want to succeed for Boston College, for him. But that kind of lesson has really informed my directorship at Boston College. You can't do anything without people, and you've got to treat them with the dignity and the respect that they deserve. He taught me that, and that's something that I've been able to practice throughout my life. In my mind, here in May 2015, there are two great people retiring. Charles Nolan, Dean of Admission, Olin College, and David Letterman, the head of late night television. And I was reading an interview with Letterman in the New York Times a couple of Sundays ago, and the interviewer asked him the obvious question: "What are you going to do? You know, what happens? How do you step off this successful career? What are you going to do?" And Letterman's response was, "Well, there are two ways we can go here: adult acceptance of transition, or I turn to a life of crime." And I think those of us who know Charlie, we fear the same thing from him. It's either going to be adult acceptance of transition, or he's going to turn to a life of crime. But whatever he does, he's near and dear to every one of us. He's touched us all in some way, and we know that he has left an indelible mark on the profession of college admission in general, but more importantly, on all of the people who have crossed paths with him and worked with him. Charlie, thank you for everything.
I'm not sure what
He was in the first partners class, and when we came to interview, if you remember, this was literally a hole in the ground. We literally, and I'm not kidding you, had hard hats on to walk around the campus. and the only building was the little building down in the front. And if you remember at one of the kind of candidates weekend, it was a little different back then, but the challenge that was given to you and the rest of the faculty was, who the heck are you guys to take our cherished kids into a college that does not exist? And you said, trust us, we're here for the long run. And it's 15 years ago, and you certainly are, and thank you. Look what you built, it's really tremendous. Now, another little known fact is, I don't know that many people can claim this, but we had the entire Olin College at our house, and the entire Olin College, including our honored guest, in our hot tub all at one time. Sorry, I don't have video of that. But thank you for everything, and it's been a great run. What can I say?
Oh, wow.
Paul, thank you. Thank you very much. You and Jeff, you started it all way back when. Remember, you used to be the poster family, and Jeff was the poster boy.
Nancy.
Okay, to the college. I have a little story. So it was the summer of 2000, and there was going to be a social, probably the first social that was ever held at Olin at Da Vinci House, 1735 Great Plain Avenue. And I walked across the wall to get to the back of the house where the picnic was being held. And all of a sudden, this tall, handsome guy just comes up and says, "You're Diana Dabby." And before I could even reply, he said, "Where's the Olin Orchestra?" And he said it in such a way that he was, smiling, laughing. His eyes twinkled in that Irish way, and he was dead serious. So I decided that I had a little thinking to do as a result of that encounter. And the beautiful thing about Charlie is that he might put an idea into your head, but he doesn't let you just go. He will actually help you along the way. And Charlie gave his time and his energy to helping music at Olin, and in particular, the Olin Conductorless Orchestra. So I'll give you an example. We decided for the 10th anniversary of the orchestra, which was in the fall of 2011, that it'd be nice to take the orchestra somewhere special so that they could perform somewhere in a hall, perhaps, maybe in New York. Well, before I knew it, Charlie Nolan had us booked into the Great Hall at the Cooper Union, where Lincoln had spoken in 1860. So we actually had a concert there. It was quite an event for the orchestra and for all of us who had attended as well. Now, there's another thing about Charlie, which has been mentioned by Jackie and others, and that is his generosity. So Charlie Nolan is a very generous guy, not only with his time and energy, but also, as he would say, with his wallet. And so, there was a time when I would walk into admissions, and the first thing Charlie would do is, where's my wallet? Better hold on to my wallet. And the interesting thing is, I never asked Charlie for money. What was amazing, or funding for music at Olin, what was amazing was he saw the need, and he just did it. Half the time I didn't even know. And I think finally, we have so much to be grateful for to him, to you, for the students that we have at Olin. We have such an amazing group of students. And like many others here, I've served on the admissions committee, and it turns out that as part of the admissions committee, you sometimes wonder, oh, who is this student? And right away Charlie says, oh, that's so-and-so, and he's passionate or she's passionate about this or that, and did you know that he entered this or she did that? And he named the high school, he knew the city, everything. And to have such a knowledge of the students, really, it shows the passion that Charlie had for his job. It also shows the love that he had for each of the students that was in his care, and the candidates, for example. And so I don't think it's any surprise then that our alumni would gather together and decide to create an endowed fund, the Charlie Nolan Candidate Endowed Fund, so that future candidates would be able to attend candidates weekends without having to worry about, can I afford it, can my family afford it? So they would be able to attend. And the alumni of Olin are...
We all do, it's a given. I want to just give a few words for him. First of all, Charlie, thanks for hiring me at Batson. I loved working there and being part of that team. It was good. It was my first admission experience, and we went from deadline to deadline to deadline. And just as Lindsay said, it was an exercise in excellence. And I'm grateful for that experience. Thanks for believing in me enough to ask me to come to Olin. Who knew how much fun this 15-year trip, this journey was going to be. I wish I had a time-lapse video of all the things that have happened, because so much has happened in that time. Admission people talk often about, okay, sorry about this. Admission folks are fond of talking about the fit. You've all heard it as students or as parents or as professionals, and how critical it is to a student's success. But I can't imagine a better fit for Olin than Charlie Nolan, and vice versa. Olin deserved and needed you, and we're grateful for everything you've done. You brought top-notch students to an untested campground and convinced their parents of the value of their risk. Who could do that? Not somebody meek and humble, somebody who really understood what was going on and what would happen. Thank you for having that vision, the imagination, the personal connection, and the dedication to ensure Olin's success and that of Olin's students. Of course, it didn't hurt that you had high expectations of those around you. Fabulous public speaking skills, impeccable grammar, and the best laugh on the East Coast. Couldn't do without it. Charlie, you've been my boss, my teacher, my friend, from the bottom of my heart. I want to thank you for being part of my life and for letting me be part of yours. I will miss you and always count you among my friends. Thank you for all that you've done for this small but amazing place. And I wish you every success, every happiness, and lots of adventures ahead, because I know there are going to be many. And you've got to keep in touch. Please. Thanks.
I'm the Executive Vice President here at Olin. I'm sort of the official part of the program. And I'm standing in front of you today because our president, Rick Miller, is sitting in an airport terminal as we speak in Sao Paulo, Brazil, about to get on a plane and be back here in time for commencement. But I'm honored to be standing here for him. My story begins in January of 1985, and don't worry, it's not going to be 30 years of Charlie's story. But I began working at Boston University at that point, and I worked in the Enrollment Services Unit, so I worked with the admissions and the financial aid people. And from day one, I started hearing everybody at Boston University talk about this guy, Charlie Nolan, at Boston College, over and over again. People in admissions were talking about it, people in financial aid. A little while later, I found out that there was this sort of roving poker game that took place periodically with all the senior enrollment people at Boston University. Well, who was the one non-BU guy who played in the poker game? Dean Nolan from Boston College. He claims he won all the time. So, you know, after hearing his name so much and so much about him, I thought, well, there's this legend working up at the Heights, and you know, just famous. As an aside, some of us earlier today were in a meeting with a potential vendor, and one of the women who was representing the company had been an admission officer, and she knew this was going on tonight, and she said when she first became a dean of admission, I guess, whenever she brought up an idea to her president, the president would say, well, that sounds interesting, but call that guy Charlie Nolan at Boston College and see what he thinks. So he's a legend in many ways. I finally got to meet Charlie in the summer of 1985 because every year at that time, the BU admission office would play a softball game against the BC admission office. BU always won. But despite that, Charlie and his BC colleagues did a wonderful job of hosting us every summer for a great event. So I finally got to meet the legend in the summer of 1985. Fast forward to 1999, I arrived at Olin College and soon found out that the legend would be joining us at Olin. Shortly thereafter, he was coming from Babson to become our first dean of admission. And I was thrilled to have the opportunity to work with Charlie. And that was justified because in the almost 16 years since, he's been a great colleague. I've learned a lot from him, and he's become a very good friend. Way too many highlights for Charlie's career here at Olin to talk about. Some of them have already been mentioned. Let me mention a few. When we were creating the college, Charlie and Duncan Murdoch, who many of you know, were given this seemingly impossible task to recruit the top students in the country to come to a college that didn't exist. And I can't think of two better people for the task. And their initial approach was really interesting, and it utilized their expertise in the field. And what they did was decided to go out and approach the college counselors around the country and work through them and explain what Olin was going to be about and say, when you see a good student for Olin, you know it, and just call us up. And it was a masterful way to begin the process, and then the more traditional parts of the process followed. As our admission program developed, Duncan seemed to gravitate more towards the marketing side. That was his area of expertise, and Charlie took care of the rest. And it was that work that Charlie did that I think, to me, developed one of the, if not the hallmark of the Olin admissions program, and that's the personalized approach. Getting to know each and every potential applicant, each and every applicant. About, whenever it was that Charlie set a date and told us he was definitely leaving, I remember speaking to him shortly after that and said, yeah, we'll do a search and we'll find someone. But the thing that we're going to miss most when you leave is the personal connections that you make with each and every applicant for this college. And many of you have probably heard Charlie use the line, at Olin we recruit each student one at a time. And it's really true. By the time the students arrive here, we know everything there is to know about them, or more appropriately, Charlie talking about them. And he develops these wonderful relationships that last. We're seeing parents and alums and students here today because of those relationships. Once the students arrive, Charlie doesn't forget about them. He maintains contact with them. He's been a strong supporter of student activities. For example, he's always attending different student events. We've heard about his support of the music program, and we've heard about his co-curriculum, his public speaking co-curriculum. I'm sure he's standing over there now counting the number of verbal tics that I'm making. John, you talked about Charlie developing people. I think for those of you who are sports fans, you've probably read articles at different times about these superstar coaches and all of the assistant coaches that they mentored and developed that went on to become star coaches on their own. And they show these almost family tree-looking diagrams. Well, I think of Charlie like that in the admission field. He's developed and mentored admission professionals at many institutions throughout the years that are now senior leaders in the admission field, and he's had a real impact on the field. Charlie's going out on top, always a good thing. For those of you who may not know, Olin received a record number of applications this year. We've admitted and have deposited a superb class coming in. Our record of strong low admit rates and high yield rates has continued. So well done, Charlie, as always. Again, many of you have heard Charlie at every candidate's weekend or welcoming a new class.
Can you hear me? My name is Mike Noma, Charlie's brother. I'm third, Charlie was second, and we have an older brother who's not with us, and Kevin, who would love to be here tonight. Is my Bonnie's right out here. I also have a twin brother and sister. We have a twin brother and sister. Mary Beth, standing right here, and Chris, that couldn't make it. I'm standing here because I just want to know a little bit about us as a family. Oh, sorry, my brother Chris was over there, didn't see him. And growing up in our family, you know, we had a tough mother. She cracked the whip. I was scared of her. I was anyway. And my father was always working. He was out there, two jobs. As I call him a workaholic, which I think it kind of trend down to my brother Kevin. He did work real hard, did very well. Charlie, obviously, you all know. And I did all right myself. And Chris, still working, still hanging in there. So my sister doing very well at what they do. And I just want to mention that because and our parents didn't get to see much of my father because he worked. But I think we learned a lot. You know, we learned how to work, and it ain't gonna get done unless you do it. And you gotta work for it. I think I saw that in Kevin. I saw that in Charlie. And I like to think I saw it in myself, and I see it in my younger brother Chris and my sister Mary Beth. And I think this is a tribute to our parents and to my brother. And I'm very proud of Charlie. And it's a great day, and I'm just glad that I'm here to see it. Again, thank you very much for your time.
Frankly, I am more emotional than I thought I would be standing here at this moment. Because I never think of myself in the ways in which people have described me here today. I just don't. And I think that's part of what Michael was talking about. My brother, my mother wouldn't allow us to have a big ego. But I am. And it's a remarkable thing. But I do have some remarks today. It comes in the form of a story and a list of thank yous. And the story is this, is that as Dean of Admission at Babson, I was on the Strategic Planning Committee at Babson in March of 1997, and then President Bill Glavin came into the room and announced that Olin College was going to happen. And as he described it, my jaw dropped. And the first thing that came into mind was that I wanted to be part of that. Fast forward, 2 years later, June 1999, Duncan Murdoch, who's been referred to here, my longtime colleague and then director of admissions at University of Southern California, became the first vice president for external relations and enrollment. And he came over to my office at Babson to ask me if I would be on the search committee for the Dean of Admission at Olin. I said, Duncan, I want that job. Hire me. We'll be great together. And there was only 3 people in the college at the time, so therefore the search was quite short, and I was hired. And here we are, now, 2015. So that's the story. So I have a list of thank yous, and they're important for me to say this. And I need to start with thanking the people with whom I wouldn't be here today, and my family. And I didn't know Lindsay was going to say what she said. It makes me so proud. Because your daddy did work a lot, and you were patient and understanding while I was working and traveling as much as I did. Thank you for that. More importantly, thank you for my grandson Graham, the best grandchild on the planet. Thank you to my wife Zuli for being patient with me, especially during the last 5 years as Olin was adapting to new realities that affected our goal to attract the best students. It kept me up at night, tethered me to email, traveling, and working strange hours. Thank you, Zuli. Thank you to my siblings, as Michael pointed out, Kevin, who's not with us, Mike, Mary Beth, and Chris. You've been there throughout my life, and you've been there when I've needed you, and it's been a remarkable family. Thank you, Bonnie, for being here as well, my brother Kevin's wife. And Barry, thanks for coming. I imagine knowing someone that is well over 50 years, and he's seen me through the best and the worst. Now, my professional thank yous start with acknowledging the person who mentored me in the field of admission and enrollment management. Jack McGuire, the first Dean of Enrollment Management at Boston College and in the country, and now Chairman of McGuire Associates. Jack pioneered the concept of enrollment management, one of the most important movements in higher education in the last 40 years. As a theoretical physicist, Jack's legendary utilization of data analysis revolutionized the way in which colleges and universities manage enrollment. Jack's just there. Jack, I just want to let you know Jack Olin is the quintessence of enrollment management. Everybody here at Olin gets it. By the way, Boston College, I think it's alluded to, has produced more enrollment management leaders than any other college in the country. And several of them are here today. Now, my Olin friends. And as always, we begin at the beginning. Larry Milas, you are the man after whom that building is named. As the president of the F.W. Olin Foundation, you not only provided the resources to start Olin College, but more importantly, the vision and the courage to make it happen. Beyond being the principal reason for Olin, you've become friend to me and many others here. And I look forward to becoming a neighbor in Florida when I eventually get there. Thank you, Bill Norton, one of the original directors of the Olin Foundation and trustee. As chair of the Board of Trustees, you provided the leadership through the economic downturn of 2008-2009. Your calm and confident demeanor kept everyone focused on the future and not those turbulent, scary days. I might add, I never held it against you that you're a New York Yankees fan. Thank you, Rick Miller. You're the only person that could have been the founding president of Olin. You set the standard of hard work, dedication, and laser beam focus on ensuring Olin's success. You are the living definition of what an engineer is. And I quote, "Engineers envision what has never happened and do whatever it takes to make it happen." You did whatever it took to bring Olin from a startup to a benchmark school. I also commend you for not sending emails after midnight, unless, of course, you're in another time zone. Thank you to my earliest colleagues. We're assembled for a picture, in fact, it shows up on that screen, September 1st, 1999, a small conference room at Babson. And we look so young then. President at the time, Rick Miller, Dave Curran, Provost, and Dean of Faculty, Shara Curran's Vice President for Innovation Research, Duncan Murdoch, VP for External Relations and Enrollment, Steve Hanbury, Vice President of Administration, and me, Dean of Admission. We operated under Spartan conditions at first, but no one was ever deterred. It was inspiring to be around them. Shara Curran said early on, there is no option for failure, and that became our theme. We did whatever it took. Thank you, my fellow Olin staff members. You are the behind-the-scenes heroes. Olin wouldn't be Olin without you. Thank you for all of your help over the years. Your friendship, good work, and humor will always be remembered. Thank you to my Sodexo food service colleagues. You feed us, you clean up after us, and you're friends like no other. You are highly valued partners here at the college. Thank you, facilities folks, for always making this campus look so good. Thank you in particular for this past winter. We magically moved the snow so we could park our cars and pull off Candidates Weekend. Bless your heart. Thank you, IT colleagues, for keeping me and everyone else here at Olin connected and productive. You are unsung heroes. Thank you to my good friend and college photographer, Mike Maloney, who's been here almost as long as I have been. He's taken thousands of photographs, all of which are cherished memories. By the way, Mike is a BC grad. Thank you, Olin faculty. You are the magic that makes the Olin experience so rich and impactful for our students. You make students work hard and they love it, and they love you for it. Thank you for contributing all you do to attract the best and produce the exception. Thank you, Olin parents. Since the beginning of Olin time, parents have been extraordinary in many ways, primarily because you supported your daughters and sons' decision to attend Olin, and equally important, you supported them while they were here. You've been huge cheerleaders for Olin College in general, and the admission and postgraduate offices in particular. Thank you is not enough for all you do for Olin. Thank you to my admission and postgraduate planning colleagues, which I affectionately call the Olin bookends. Admission brings them in, and PGP gets them ready after Olin. Suzanne, Aarti, Sally, Graham, Jessica, Emily, and Susan. You've done the work of dozens over the years. I'm indebted to you for your confidence, work ethic, good cheer, and willingness to put up with me all these years. You are simply the best. Susan, thank you, Susan. By the way, Susan, I must tell you, quick side, I had two Susan Johanssons on my life. The other one is right over there, Mary Ellen Devlin now, Mary Ellen St. Clair at the time, who, between the two of them, I'm standing here now. It's because of them. They got me through BC and through BAPS, and now here, Mary Ellen. Thank you for coming today. It means a lot to me. Susan, it's almost been 20 years, and I couldn't do this job without you. Couldn't have done it. Finally, thank you to all of the Olin students and alumni everywhere. Seniors, there are some here, you were spectacular during your scope presentations. I was really very proud of you. What makes Olin special is that we've attracted young people since the beginning who are smart, passionate, caring, and committed to making Olin the best it can be for themselves and for generations of Oliners to come. Thank you for the countless hours you gave to the admission office, conducting tours and overnights, being nice to prospies and their families at all times, and of course being the central reason why Candidates Weekends are so successful. Olin admission simply couldn't do it without you. I know you're going to support the new Dean of Admission and Financial Aid, Emily Roper-Doughton, who's coming to Tufts, starts on June 1. Olin is one of the most selective schools in the country, and Emily is going to help take it to the next level. I've had an unusually satisfying career. The highlight is helping to start a college from scratch in 1999. to what is now a place that, that is others look to for inspiration. While my journey at Olin will soon come to an end, I'm fond of saying, once an Ola, always an Ola. Thank you for listening.